Marie, we got to get into this. Let's get into this. This idea that Travis McMichael sent his friend this message, shooting a crackhead with gold teeth and a high point 45, and then Mr. Langford says he was referring to a raccoon. He was referring to an animal. You can hear the skepticism on the part of the attorney who's questioning him that not only does this seem ridiculous and unlikely, but then it raises the question if these witnesses are going to testify on the behalf of the McMichaels at any point during this bond hearing, during a trial, it raises the question of credibility. And I'm curious what you think, because, for all I know, maybe he did talk, maybe he was talking about an animal. I mean, you give him the benefit of the doubt. Then again, it just seems so unlikely that that's what he's talking about. This text message exchange was something that really people took apart about once it came out on Friday.
You could look at this two ways. One is that he's just not credible, and they certainly weren't talking about an animal. Second is that they're actually equating this crackhead person they're referring to an animal. And we've already heard that this man's a hunter. He's a killer of animals. So there's a lack of humanity to talk about a person as if they're an animal when we know he's an animal hunter. So I don't think this testimony bodes well for him. I don't think either testimony of his friends getting on the stand bode well for him. Either way, it's clearly a lack of empathy and a lack of respect for human life and humanity. Either way.
So, Mike, now we deal with a situation where all three defendants are locked up. Let's talk about William Roddy Bryant. At first, he was a witness, then he was a suspect, and then he was a defendant. The role that he plays in all of this, the idea that he helped to block Arbery from escaping, videotaped what was happening, it seems that he is a part, or allegedly a part of what happened, but it also seems he's distinct from the McMichaels. I mean, he didn't physically, well, that's not true. He is alleged to have hit Arbery with his car at one point, but he wasn't part of the actual moment of the shooting. The role that he's going to play now, and as this case progresses, what do you think about him?
Well, I think the prosecution's they're extremely interested in him. They're interested in him is because they're going to have to do a balancing test, risk, reward. Is it worth the risk of making a deal with him since he could provide on-the-scene testimony? He was the one who made the tape. He may have participated, but you have to make judgment calls as a prosecutor. Is he someone worth making a deal with so we could get to the real heart of this horrible crime and have some credible, corroborated witness from a participant who didn't really contribute to the whole murder? He was a conspirator, technically under the law. He could be just as guilty, as they say in conspiracy. If you're in for a little bit, you're in for everything. However, there is a trade-off here, and I think he could be a very effective witness for the state, but that's without having interviewed him to see what he could say to the government and help their case.
Marie, I want to give you another word on this, because you talk about this man. Let's go to the McMichaels. They're represented by different counsel. How much of a common ground are they going to find in their defense? They are a father and son, but they are represented by different attorneys. How is there going to be a chance that they're on the same page all the time, or no?
Well, I really don't see how. Well, generally in defense, you're always going to be trying to point the finger at the other person. But I don't see how these two are not on the same page. They're still coming. This is their defense that they felt endangered. And I mean, they're telling the same story. So I think they're going to be on the same page. Whether or not that's a good strategy, but I don't agree with their strategy all along. I think this is one case where the defense is just indefensible.
Well, at this point, it looks like a tough case for them, but we have some time, and they're collecting their evidence, they're collecting their witnesses, and all eyes of the nation will be on Georgia, seeing what happens here. The same way that there are eyes on Minneapolis, there are eyes on Louisville, and this is one of those cases that happened during this time. Now, I do want to let everybody know that we're still talking about Ahmaud Arbery and recapping what happened because we're keeping a careful eye out in Ohio. We're waiting to jump live in the Erica Stefanko trial. She's charged with murder, kidnapping, and robbery in connection with the death of Ashley Briggs. It's going to be an interesting case to follow, a new trial here on the network. We're excited to be back in a live trial. So we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll see if we see any activity.